Hey guys, today I want to show you how to model this interesting chandelier by Studio Mark & Poika. The chandelier is called Temporality, and the way it's made in real life is actually pretty cool. You take a wooden chandelier or any other object, for example like this, you glue on the metal rings, and then you burn away the wooden parts. Well, since we can't use fire in 3D Max, we're going to have to use a different approach. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to model a simplified version of this wooden base, and then I'm going to use Forest Pro plugin to scatter some metal rings on top of the base. Right, so let's model the base with some basic line tools. I'm roughly tracing the outline. Doesn't matter, it doesn't need to be perfect since the final result does not have a clear-cut shape anyways. So just try to roughly trace it. And I'm using pretty low segments since I'm going to use Turbo Smooth on my final model. Right, so make sure, okay, all the vertices are set to corner, so don't get any extra segments we don't need. And just throw on the lathe modifier. Press 1 to move the central axis and move it leftwards. Okay, flip the normals, check the segment density. Okay, and finally I'm going to collapse it to editable poly and collapse these open areas on top and bottom. So just select the border element and collapse. Okay, Turbo Smooth. That looks alright. Not a perfect copy, but it's not going to be seen in the final version anyway. Okay, so let's make this candle holder, basically using the same technique we did before. Right, lathe, now the center, and okay, that's fine. Turbo Smooth, that's good. Now let's create this extension that goes out from the center. So basically I'm just going to take a line and extrude it like that. Okay, let's give the line some thickness. I'm going to start with a rectangular And I'm gonna add those little leaves or whatever they are. Collapse to poly. And I'm gonna give it some taper, so it starts out thinner and that ends up thicker. Okay, turbo smooth. Just to check the final thickness. Let's delete the polys and ends. We don't need them. All right. And let's make those little leaves. Okay, so I'm gonna add an edit poly modifier above the turbo smooth. Select some polys over here, and let's extrude them. And one more time. Okay. Adjust the shape, doesn't matter if it's slightly wrong. Let's try another turbo smooth, and I think that's good enough for the purposes of this object. And one more on the bottom here. Actually, it looks like I missed this element over here. Okay. Again, just go for the rough shape. No need to spend too much time on it. We need to close the gap here. Okay, that's fine. And finally, this lower leaf over here. Right, I think that's good enough. Okay, let's delete that turbo smooth and the one over here. Check the amount of edges on the end. It's 8 edges. And I'm going to set my lathe segments to 8 as well. And I'm going to attach these two together. Okay, so collapse the editable poly, attach, and using the target weld tool, just go around and weld it together. Right, so turbo smooth once again, and let's create a few copies around around the base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pivot point, move it to the center, and how many copies there are? Looks like only 6, so let's just rotate with the shift pressed and rotate 60 degrees and make 5 copies. Okay, perfect. And let's just collapse everything to editable poly and attach together. Okay, so now we need to create a circle that we will scatter all along the surface. So go to the top view. It's best to do it from the top. Create a circle. Maybe something like this in size. Maybe slightly smaller. Let's say 1.5. And adjust the size of the profile. Okay, I'm going to collapse it to editable poly. First of all, I'm going to just reduce the interpolation steps a little bit, just to make it a bit faster and make the model a bit lighter. Okay, and collapse to editable poly. Loop, ring, and chamfer the edges to get rid of those sharp corners. And I think this is going to be fine. Alright, so now I'm going to take my i2 software Forest Pro object and I'm going to click on my chandelier. Alright, so now we need to adjust some settings. First of all, change the geometry to custom object and take the circle right here. Okay, now let's go down. Let's reduce the units to maybe 100. Okay, and make sure your display options are set to display mesh, not proxy, points cloud, or adaptive. If you set it to mesh, you can see exactly what's going on your model. Okay, and now we need to enable collisions, so the circles are not intersecting with each other. You can do that in the distribution map tab. Go down here and enable collisions and turn on preview and viewport. Okay, and I'm actually going to reduce the radius to something like 90% so the circles can touch but they do not cross each other. Okay, and as you can see, right now the distribution of the objects is a bit weird. So we're going to take our surface tab and we're going to change the mode from XY to UV and turn on auto refresh. Okay, And if the circles do not appear, you need to add some UVW mapping to the chandelier object. In my case, everything works fine, so that's alright. And we want to rotate the circles so they are facing in the direction of the chandelier normals. Right now they are rotated the wrong way. So change the direction to 0 or normal. Okay, that's fine. Looks good. And I think we're gonna need to paint a custom distribution map for this particular scene. So let's create a new image, let's say 200 by 200 pixels, inverted, and we want to paint in some white areas that are connected to each other. Okay, let's use the offset filter to make sure it's stylable, and just paint these together. Okay, maybe some darker areas as well. Alright. So let's say like that. Save the image. And select your forest object. I'm just going to hide my base. Select my forest object and change the distribution map to my custom bitmap. Okay. I think maybe our circles are a bit too small. We can change that in some different ways, but I'm just going to go ahead and scale up the element of my original model. And I think the result looks pretty good. Nice coverage. And from a distance you will not see if there are some problem areas where the circles are not completely connected or anything like that. Just to make sure we can go to our collisions and maybe reduce them a bit further to maybe like 80% or so. Just to make sure the circles are touching each other a bit more. Okay. Some final adjustments to the distribution map. Let's try that 130. And that's a bit too low. Let's try 100. And basically that's your final model.